Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Isaiah and today I'm going to be starting a part 2 of what it means to be proactive versus reactive. And I'm going to be going more in depth on what I talked about in the last video, and I'm going to be showing how you can go about that while using Disk. But first we got to talk about all the benefits that there is to being proactive. Um, some of those is that proactive people can brush off things easily. So let's say somebody wrongs them, like I said in the last video, they can be able to brush it off and then move on. Um, Proactive people can also bounce back when something bad happens, and they're also good at thinking before they act. So if you were to act before thinking, that would be what's it called? That would be just to if you were to act before thinking, that would be to react. But when you're thinking before acting, that is being proactive. Um, so the way that you can use DISC in being proactive and learning not to react is you can use DISC in understanding what it is that understanding what your weaknesses are, how you go about that, what another person's weaknesses are, and um what preferences another person may have just by using DISC. You can be able to evaluate somebody just by knowing what it is that they do best. Um Another thing would be, what's it called? Oh my gosh. Give me a second here. Um, Another thing would be to, man, I just lost my train of thought. Um, yes, as I was saying, another thing would be to Disk can do many things, and as I was saying, you can use Disk to evaluate somebody and know what their weaknesses are, what their strengths are, and what your weaknesses are as well, and strengths. You can do that just by understanding all of the different personalities and the traits. I mean, all the strengths and weaknesses. And once you do that, you can be able to, yeah, once you do that, you can be able to evaluate somebody just based off of their strengths, personalities, how they act. That's a big one. Like you can be able to tell somebody you can tell somebody's a born leader just by their how they act. Let's say they're leading and you'll be like, man, they're really stepping up to the leader's plate, whatever you want to call it. You can probably tell that they are a D. And if you were to see somebody who's talkative or makes a lot of friends, you could probably see, man, I think they're an I, because you know the strengths of eyes, the how eyes are known and all that stuff. Um, and the way that you can use that is, let's say you are in a table. I used that example the other day where you have a peer at the other table who is who does something that you don't like. The most likely reaction the reaction most likely you would have is to ask them to stop. And if they keep on doing it and doing it, you get mad and mad and mad, and then you're like, stop. You know what I'm saying? And you're because you don't understand how they're wired yet. If you understand their strengths and their wiring, their personality wiring, then you can be able to understand that person and be able to realize that you can realize that that's just how they're wired, and that what they're doing, they're not trying to annoy you. That's just what they do. Yeah. Um, and when you use this, you can, yeah, when you use that, it helps you to avoid reacting because you know how that person is, and you at the same time you're being proactive because as I said earlier, um when you're proactive, people they can just brush things off without getting offended, and they find a way to move forward and bounce back when something bad happens. If you have those personality traits, kudos to you. Some people don't, which is why if you're watching this video, you're probably here looking for tips, right? Um yeah, so another thing that another way that being proactive pays off is the proactive people understand that things will not always go their way, and they realize that if it's not going to go their way, they need to know that there has to be another plan, and they need to know that that there will be a solution somehow. It didn't go your way the first time. You're gonna have to find it. It may take some more time, but if you're proactive, you're gonna find another solution. And if something doesn't go your way, they know how to react, and they know what they need to do without just lashing out on somebody or lashing out on themselves if something doesn't go their way, right? Um, Reactive people, on the other hand, if something isn't going their way, they blame their peers, they blame everybody, they blame themselves, they even blame the world. You know what I'm saying? They'll blame everything. They try to play the victim here, and they'll blame and blame and blame without confronting the real problem, and that's themselves because um they're not they're not um they're not acknowledging their mistakes, and by not acknowledging their strength, I mean their mistakes. Did I say mistakes? Anyways, by without acknowledging their mistakes, they are just gonna keep on making the mistakes over and over and back and forth until they actually realize that what they're doing is they're just going up the stairs and then tripping and going back to the same step every single time. So, with the benefit of being proactive in that situation is that they realize that they may have made a mistake, and they also acknowledge that and also think back to what the mistake is. If you've seen what scientists do, um they don't they don't forget about the mistake they made. They use that as another step up the ladder. And what I mean by that is, let's say they're making a vaccine, but the thing they choose is not the correct thing for that strand. So when they make the mistake, do you know what they do? When it fails, they go back, take their notes, and then acknowledge their mistake and then move on from that. But they don't go back to making the same mistake again because they are being proactive and they're acknowledging their mistakes and moving forward. If you are a reactive scientist, that would be the worst job for you, let me tell you. Yeah. um I've seen how this can happen in teenagers a lot, where especially for me, when you're when there's something you don't want to do, you tend to push it aside, and when it keeps on coming back, and you're trying to put it aside, and it keeps on coming back, then you start to react and you get mad and all that stuff. um you got to learn that things may not always go your way, and you got to realize that when it doesn't when it doesn't go your way, you you have to find a solution to getting that. And if that's either solving the problem or moving it aside, the best thing to do is solve the problem, because putting aside something never goes away. At some point of your life, that problem's going to come back and you have to face that problem, right? Like if you're afraid of spiders, you may hire an exterminator to get rid of the spiders, but you may go to your friend's house and find out that they also have spiders somewhere in the house. So, um, yeah. Another thing that actually in the book I saw that when he's so Sh Sean yeah, Sean Covey said that life often deals us a bad hand. And so the bad hand basically is it's a cards game. No, it's a cards word term. It's a term, anyways. So basically, a bad hand means when, let's say you're playing cards and all that stuff, the dealer will give you some bad cards. Or if you're playing Uno, actually, I never thought of that, but or dominoes, they'll give you cards at random, and you may not like those cards at first, and you may not like the cards because they look bad, but you have to learn to overcome that and just learn to play with those, learn to move on and play with what you have until you get what you want at the end. People have different paths. One path may be easier than the other, and that person who has the easier one isn't getting off the hook. They still have something they have to do. But the people with the harder ones, um, also tend to quit. As I've heard, I forgot where I heard it from. It's I think it was John Maxwell. He said that it's easier to start something, but it's easier to start something and harder to finish. The ones that finish are among the 2%. And the 2% are the ones that take the next step to um accomplishing something big, like Elon Musk, Microsoft, what's Bill Gates, the founder of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. All of those people have have become the 2% just because of accomplishing their dreams. So I hope you have taken something valuable from this, and I hope you all have a blessed day. And thank you. And make sure to tune into part 3.